So what we're looking at tonight is protect yourself against bad breaks. So essentially, when you are a declarer, it's typically a declarer. You can do this as a defender, but nearly always it's a declarer because you can actually see what suit you're actively playing. As a defender, you know when suits are breaking badly because you can see in the dummy, but also it's more difficult to know because you can't see what your partner's got in that particular suit you're interested in. So whenever we're talking about bad breaks, we're almost always talking about a declarer having a bad break in a suit. Trumps broke badly normally means the defender's trumps were unevenly split, and that was to declarer's detriment, is what we normally mean when we refer to that. So protecting yourself against bad breaks is a way of playing a suit in a careful manner in order that if the suit were to break badly, you can still come out somewhat smelling of roses. It doesn't mean you will always get as many tricks as you might have, but it means that you can protect yourself to some degree. So essentially, when we play suits, what we are hoping for, and I hope everyone always gets this, but it won't be true, is that when suits break nicely, we have lots of tricks. If suits break 3-3 and 2-2, you tend to have an easier time of things, because when the opponent's suits break, you tend to make more tricks because they run out quickly. If the cards break and one opponent has a lot of them and another opponent has very few, you tend to find tricks start to vanish, especially when that suit is trumps. If the trumps break badly, it can go from an easy contract to absolutely doomed in 2 tricks because of a bad break. So what I'm going to be talking about is ways of manipulating the way you play a suit so that if the suit is to break badly, you might still be able to do something about it. Essentially just being careful with the cards you play. So I'll put a suit on here. Now I want to make kind of stress, the way I'm going to play these suits is not the traditional if everything's hunky-dory and everything's breaking way. I'm making the assumption that I have some bad news coming. I understand you aren't going to know. When you play a hand, how are you going to know if the suit's breaking badly or not? Well, tonight you might suspect it, as I set hands up. But typically, if you're playing in a normal situation, you aren't going to know. You're not psychic, and if you were, you'd be an excellent bridge player. So you don't know. So I'm going to play the suits as normal, but in a way where I might be able to benefit from the suit breaking badly. Now, benefit's a strange word because you can never get rich from a suit breaking badly, but you can at least deal with it, is what I'm talking about. So imagining this was our trump suit. I'm not going to put all 4 suits on for now, but imagining this was our trump suit in some contracting space. I'll say 4 spades just because the game's exciting, but who cares? We're in some contracting space and this is our trump suit, okay? So we are really strongly expecting to take all the spade tricks here. You would be devastated if you lost to the jack of spades, because that would be very unlucky. What would require to happen for you to lose to the jack of spades would be one opponent has been dealt all 4 spades, so when you play the ace, king, queen, the jack does not fall. That would be unlucky, wouldn't it? That would be 5% of the time if you're interested, so that is not something that is going to concern you very often. However, if one opponent has been dealt 4 with the jack, there is a way to stop them from winning a trick, even in that scenario. So a lazy way to play this suit would make the assumption that you are in the 95% category. And I understand that 19 times out of 20 you would not be punished, because it doesn't matter how you play the suit, because they're breaking 3-1 or 2-2, who cares? Ace, king, queen will deal with them. When one opponent has all 4 spades, we need to be careful to manipulate it so that we can punish said opponent, whoever that is. So firstly, dismissing 2-2 and 3-1 breaks. If the spades are 2-2 or 3-1, we are going to take all the tricks. You play ace, king, queen. That does not make a good card play. 4-0 breaks are what we concern ourselves with. So often when you're protecting yourself against a bad break, you would essentially take an extremely pessimistic view. If this suit breaks this badly, can I still deal with it? If the answer is no, don't worry about it. It either breaks like that or it doesn't. If the answer is yes, try to manipulate it so when you end up with that suit, should that actually happen, you can do something about it. So the real important and the absolute complete thing you do with protecting yourself against bad breaks is keeping what's known as a finessing position. A finessing position is a way of trapping a card in an opponent's hand. So keeping a finessing position is pivotal to protect yourself against a bad break. What that means is, if one opponent has been dealt all 4 spades to the jack, we need to keep a big card sat on top of them so that we can beat their jack, we can finesse their jack from them. So we have a choice of which big spades to play first. Obviously we're not going to take a finesse on the first trick because we don't know the spades are 4-0. We think the spades are 2-2 if it's Christmas, 3-1 if it's like a Monday. So, given that the spades are some potentially breaking, in theory, if they were 3-1, it doesn't matter. But if they are 4-0, it does matter which spade you play first. The reason is, if they are 4-0 here, let's say this is the suit layout. Now, I appreciate we don't know. But let's say that's what's going on in the spades. The correct way to play the spades would be play the ace of spades, play a spade to the king 10, trapping them with the jack. When you play the ace of spades, they will have to play no spade because they haven't got one. So you play the ace of spades, they play a spade, you play a spade, they show out, and now you can finesse south. You can finesse to south through east, because when you play the ace, they play low, you play low, they do not play a spade. You now know for 100% where the jack of spades is. So when you play the spades on the next round, you play low from this hand, keeping your finessing position. This is a finessing position, king 10, because if they don't play the jack, your 10 will win, won't it? It's a marked finesse because this is a 100% success rate finesse, my kind of finesse. A finesse that will win because you have kept your finessing position. Notice, if you play the king first and not the ace or the queen, although in theory that won't matter on most hands, on this particular suit layout, you lose, don't you? You play the king first, they do something that isn't a spade. Now can you see how you have lost your finessing position? When you play spades from north, they play their jack when it suits them. They play the jack when you don't play the ace or the queen, essentially. Your finessing position has vanished because you have played a big one and therefore sacrificed the finesse. Do you see that? So you essentially carelessly got rid of your king, which was sat on top of East's jack. I understand we didn't know that East had all four to the jack, so you could argue that's bad luck, couldn't you? I should have played a big one from here because they had all four. Okay, let's imagine then that this is the situation. Now playing the king first works, doesn't it? King, small, small, no spade. You can now finesse them for the jack, can't you? Play the 10, they play the jack, you kill it. If they don't play the jack, you play small. So you could argue to me, you can only win because you know which 4-0 break it is. And I somewhat agree with you, but there is one hand, there is one way of playing it where you can deal with any 4-0 break. And that is to keep your finessing position in both hands. One hand has two big honours, another hand has one big honour. So as long as you play a big honour from the 2 and not the 1, you can deal with any 4-0 break. Let's get rid of all of the spades so we don't know how it is. Now, we are in a position whereby if the spades are 4 here and 0 here, we can play a spade to the king 10, thus trapping the jack over here. With me? If the spades are 4-0, 4 over here, we can play a spade to the 9, thus trapping the jack here. Agreed? So as long as you keep your finessing position in both suits, they can't win. Now I appreciate that is specific. It means the spades have to be breaking 4-0, and if they're 3-1 or better, it doesn't matter what you do. But you might as well play it in this way, just in case that's what happens. So by keeping a big honour in both hands, you can punish whichever opponent has the audacity to have all 4 trumps. Okay? So in this instance, let's say Jack to 4 is here, I can finesse you, Mr. East. If Jack to 4 is here, I can finesse you, Mrs. West. Do you see? You can't actually get it where the defenders will make their jack as long as you are careful. Cashing your king is careless because you have sacrificed one of your 2 finessing positions, and you would be sad to learn that they were dealt all 4 spades. Although I agree with you it's unlucky, it was careless because you didn't need to do that. So the good thing to remember, rather than this specific example, the good thing to remember is if you can afford to, cash the one with 2 honours and not the one with 1 honour, because then you can finesse in either direction should something go wrong. Okay? Notice the importance of the 10 and the 9. The 10 and the 9 are critical, aren't they? If you didn't have the 10 and the 9 and one opponent had Jack 10, 9 little, let's say this one, you can't finesse it off them because they have simply too much suit integrity. They have too many goodies. This is a situation where 5% of the time you're losing a trick. Simple as that. There is no protection because we simply don't have enough intermediates to be able to finesse. Here you play the ace, protecting yourself in theory. It goes low, low, show out, and you cannot finesse. Because when you play low, they play something that forces you to play an honour bigger than theirs. And eventually they will come to the fourth trick, eventually. So being able to protect yourself against bad breaks relies on some intermediates to be able to pin their card underneath your cards. But it does not cost you anything. So the good kind of starter point, protect yourself against bad breaks, keep big cards, if you can afford to, keep big cards in both hands, should one opponent suddenly show out and the 3-2 break you thought was happening is suddenly 5-0. Okay? A similar sequence to that, a similar suit scenario, but with ever so slightly different consequences, I suppose. Well, firstly, is everyone happy with that? Basically, if one of them's dealt 4, you can finesse them unless they've got simply too good a spades and you don't have the intermediates. Protecting yourself against bad breaks, intermediates are quite important to be able to finesse to. The 10s and 9s start to become quite relevant when aces and kings are played fairly early doors. Now, if I change the suit ever so slightly, I'll make it a minor, just because I never seem to do anything with minors, so that's just because out of interest. Let's say this is our suit combination. Very similar, but ever so slightly different. How many have we got there? That's too many. So king, queen, 10 to 5, opposite ace to 3. So the opponents have 5 diamonds. We are expecting the diamonds to be breaking 3-2. That would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be easy. So if the diamonds are 3-2, there is no point in being stood here because we're taking 5 tricks. You play your ace, you play your king, you play your queen. Done. What if the diamonds are 4-1 or 5-0? We need to be able to try our best to protect ourselves against that. So remembering from the last example, I was obsessed with keeping the finessing position. In this example, we have only one finessing position. We are only the 10 is a finesse against the jack. You see that? Keeping this is pivotal. We have no finesse here because whenever we play low, we are forced into playing our ace if we play from this hand. This is going to be a situation where we can finesse through west because we have a finessing position here, but we cannot finesse through east. So we can only protect ourselves against one bad break, not the other. Are you with me? In the first example, we could actually manipulate it where we didn't care. Whoever was dealt 4, we've got you. In this example, we only had one finessing position. We play low, they play low. We could play the 10 if we knew they had the jack. Okay? If we knew. I'm pretty sure we don't know. So the way to do that is to keep your finessing position. Combining those two things, what I just said, play an honour, if you have big cards in both hands, play an honour with 2, and then keep your finessing position. So the correct way to play this suit is to play a big one here, because you've got 2 honours. It's just good practice, you just have to take my word for it. Let's imagine everyone plays one. Okay? As far as we're concerned, we are on our merry way to a 3-2 break. Defenders know differently, but as far as we're concerned, we're still happy, aren't we? Now, the correct way is to maintain your finessing position. So the next card, big card we want to play is the what?
Ace.
The ace. We want to play low to the ace in case we learn of a bad break. So let's say we do that, and let's say it is a bad break, because obviously, as I said, if it's 3-2, there's no point. So we play low, they discard a heart, we play the ace, and they play another diamond. So the suit layout was actually 4 and 1, wasn't it? We didn't know that, but we have played the suit in the correct manner, so that we are A, now in the correct place to finesse, and B, we have kept our finessing position. So when we play our third and final diamond, West is doomed. They can't play their jack because you play the queen. If they don't play their jack, you play the 10. They can't win, can they? Because we have maintained our finessing position. Do you see how important those jaws around that card are? If we had been careless and made an assumption about a 3-2 break, we played our king first and then our queen, we would have lost our finessing position. Do you see? Okay, that's all well and good. What if jack to 4 was here? So we play king of diamonds, everyone plays one. We play a low diamond to the ace, and West shows out. So that means that this is the suit layout. We have our finessing position still in place, don't we? The problem is this finesse is going to lose, isn't it? So this is a marked finesse of the negative kind. It's a marked finesse that has a 0% chance of working. Not my kind of finesse. So in this instance, we simply can't stop them. They have the jack after our 10. So the finesse is failing. We try to protect ourselves against a 4-1 break. We cannot protect ourselves against a 4-1 break. Do you see the difference? Because we only have one finessing position. So we only have 2 jaws. We are hoping very much that West has the jack of diamonds if they're not breaking 3-2. If they're breaking 3-2, we don't care. Just ace, king, queen, off you go. If they are breaking 4-1, we need to, hopefully, be able to finesse West. If they're 4-1 the other orientation, we are going to lose a trick.
Unless we trump them.
Unless we trump them if we're in hearts or something. Yeah, I mean that could be a case as well. You could trump them and then the 10's a winner on the next round. But yeah, assume we're in no trumps or something. Okay, so whenever you have a choice of how to play a suit, you try to A, keep honours in both hands if at all possible. Sometimes you only have honours in one hand, so that's life. And the second thing is keep your finessing position as long as you can. Okay? Happy with the basic principle? Yeah, good. Right, so I need to put that up there. Now, there is one other time you might sense a bad break. In both of those examples, we knew about a bad break because we played so many rounds of them, we eventually learned someone didn't have any left. And then we could put all the rest of the suit with the other player, and we knew how to kind of act. There are some times you sense a bad break from the cards that the opponents play. In those positions before, we knew what was happening. What I'm going to now talk about is where you suspect a suit is breaking badly. That is different. That is not scientific to the absolute nth degree. That is more of a feel, if you like, a bit of a voodoo thing. But there is a way for your suspicions to be rewarded, if you will. So let me just take another suit. Okay, so let's take that spade suit. I'm not particularly worried about the trump contract, whether we're in spades or no trumps or whatever. Again, treating this suit in isolation. I understand when you play a hand of bridge, there are 4 suits always, and there are much more things going on than just this, but I'm trying to kind of segment it out, if you will. Now, we want to keep our finessing position. The basic principle is keep your jaws, if you like. So our best card, we're going to draw the trumps, let's say we're in spades. So we're going to play the king and the ace, and then we're going to lose one if they're 3 and 2. Okay, if they're 3 and 2, we're going to lose one. Simples. Unless the queen jack is a doubleton, that would be very nice, wouldn't it? The queen and jack falling underneath the ace king. Unfortunately, let's say it's not Christmas Day and it's a normal hand, so they're going to win one. Now, we want to keep our finessing position, don't we? We want to keep our jaws around a potential card. So the correct suit to maintain is norths, because that is our finesse. If we need to finesse through West because we find out they were dealt all 5 spades or something, which I appreciate will be bad luck, then we need to keep this. This is our pincer, if you will. So the correct card to cash first is the king. It is relevant which one you do first. Well, if they break 3-2, it's relevant. So we play our king first. They play a low spade. We play a low spade. And they play the queen. This is a time where you sense something is happening. So this is not cast iron, black and white, the suit is breaking badly, as the previous examples. This is a, why did they just play the queen scenario? So there are 2 possible situations, well, I suppose 3. One of the possible situations is they don't know how to play bridge, and they're just playing the queen because they think queen's bigger than king, I don't know. The realistic possibilities are they were dealt the queen and only the queen, or they were dealt the queen and the jack. Do you agree with me? Logically speaking, they're the only 2 cases where East would play the queen. Oh, I suppose they could be doing some kind of psychological bluff or something. But if we're talking about mathematics, it's the queen or the queen-jack doubleton, isn't it? Now, without going down the rabbit hole of what the odds are, when your opponents play an honour, it is far more likely it is a singleton honour than it is a doubleton honour. The theory for the mathematicians is that if they were dealt the queen and the jack, they might equally have played the jack to the queen, might they? So half of the time they've got queen-jack, you wouldn't have seen the queen, so those odds are halved. Now you don't have to it took me ages to get my head around that. Basically, if you see an honour that seemingly is unnecessary from the opponents, it's because it's their only card. That's basically what the math says. Now I cannot promise that is the truth. It might be East has queen and jack, and they're playing the queen instead of the jack because that's what they like doing. By the way, just as a side point, if you are dealt doubleton honour, be as random as you can be. Don't have a pattern. Don't always play a smaller or always play a bigger. Be random, just to try and create the maths. Anyway, if you play against people regularly, they'll learn when you do that, basically. So if you're random, they won't. Making the assumption this is the normal case. It's about 70-30 if you're interested. 70% of the time this is a singleton. It's about that. So we could, in theory, earmark West with this spade suit. Essentially, what I'm saying is, East has played the Queen unnecessarily, so it's quite likely that that is their only card in the suit. I think that stands up to logic. So if we follow that on and make an assumption that is the truth, we can now protect ourselves against this bad break that is seemingly happening, can't we? So, because we have kept our finessing position, well done us, we can now finesse West for the jack that we are assuming that they have. You with me? This is less cast iron because we are making an assumption that the Queen is a singleton. It could be Queen Jack doubleton. So you make the correct mathematical play of finessing West for their phantom jack, and then East plays the jack, very confused as to why they made a trick from Queen Jack doubleton. But that's because you're playing the odds. It's simply more likely they were dealt singleton when you see a big card unnecessarily. So when we lead this spade suit, again, well done us for keeping the finessing position. They play low, they have nothing to gain by playing the jack. In fact, it solves your problem. So they lose everything by playing the jack. And we are going to play the what? 9 or 10, whatever you prefer. They show out, because our assumption was correct. I understand that isn't guaranteed. How do we want to continue playing that spade suit? From south. We need to get the lead back to south. The problem you've got is I've given you no other cards. So, making an assumption that we have some kind of entry to south, I don't know, let's just say this. Obviously this is where real bridge comes in, where you actually have to think about things. We then play another spade. They are trapped once more, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And because of our assumption that the Queen was a singleton, we have then played that spade suit for no losers. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. So, first example, the bad break is revealed to us and we can take a marked finesse against said opponent by keeping our finessing position open and trying to keep as many honours in the hands as we could. Notice in this example, we had to play the king first, thus sacrificing a finesse this way. Finessing that way is less likely to be successful because you want to try and keep your finessing position together, try and keep your honours together. So in this instance, we kept our finessing position and were duly rewarded when a singleton honour appeared. We were expecting to lose a spade here, weren't we? If we play the ace and the king, the opponents are dealt 5, which means they are 3 and 2 most often, which means they will end up with a winning one left over, won't they? So because they are left with a winning one most of the time, because this was actually a singleton queen, which is what we suspected, we've actually played this suit for no losers. Do you see that? So we have actually pseudo-benefited from the bad break. You with me? Mm-hmm. Because the queen appearing led us to believe that this was the suit layout, and suddenly we didn't lose a trick. Only because we capitalised on the bad break. So let's say this is our spade suit in no trumps, and the opponents lead spades. That would be bad, wouldn't it? Because they're leading the suit that we have one stopper only in. So the way to protect yourself against bad breaks in no trumps, if the spades are 4 and 4, we are not that worried, are we? Because the opponents have 3 winning spades in that instance. That is the minimum number of winning spades they have, if they are 4 and 4. If the spades are something like 6-2, once they get rid of our ace, they will have 5 winning spades, won't they? So the worse they are breaking, the worse it is for us. So the way you protect yourself against bad breaks in no trumps is to follow the rule of 7, which is to duck so that they hopefully are cut off from one another. Therefore, with this number, I appreciate we've done rule of 7 before, but it's just worth noting this is another example of protecting yourself against bad breaks. The rule of 7 states that we should duck however many times from 7, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the number of cards you possess in that suit, 5, from 7, that suggests we should duck twice, doesn't it? The idea behind it, and you don't need to follow all the maths through, but the basic principle is that you're hoping the spades are breaking either evenly, in which case we're okay, or they're breaking badly, but the person with long spades cannot get in again. That's what you're hoping for. So by ducking this spade twice, let's say they are very persistent, which a good defender will be. When they play their third spade, you throw something away. If they throw something away, by ducking the spade twice, you have protected yourself against this bad break right here, haven't you? Because now you are safe to relinquish the lead to West but not save to relinquish the lead to east. Of course, I'm making the assumption we're in no trumps. If we're in trumps, you just take your ace and accept your loser. In trumps. In no trumps, we wanted to cut east and west off from one another. So protect yourself against bad breaks in no trumps, follow the rule of 7.